Hello, my friends. Happy Tuesday. I wanted to jump in here and talk to you a little bit today about something that was on my mind and something that I think we don't think about a lot when we create programs or workshops or content or anything like that. And it can even work within your actual coaching itself. So, there are 5 principles of adult learning. And this is according to Malcolm Knowles, who was one of the pioneers of creating andragogy, which is the study of how adults learn. Whereas if you are a teacher of children, you know that pedagogy means that's how kids learn. So there are some differences. And this is something that I learned as I was working on my master's in strategic human resources and the focus on learning and training and all that good stuff. So I just thought it was really pertinent to share this with all of you to give you something different to think about when you're creating your programs. So there are 5 principles in how adults learn, and I'm going to go through them real quick and then I'm going to break them down for you to give you a little bit more detail. The first is that adult learners are self-directed. The second is that adult learning needs to be experience-based, or they need to be able to bring in their own personal experiences. The third is that it needs to be relevant and there has to be immediacy of application. And I'll talk to you about what this means here shortly. And then the fourth is that it needs to be focused on problem solving. The fifth is that adult learners have to be motivated to learn. So let me break this down a little bit more to talk about what each of those mean. The first one being self-directed. Adults can do things on their own, right? We don't need people in our faces like showing us how to do all the nitty-gritty thing, which is really interesting because I know as a trainer and instructor and everything, I've seen a lot of people, we really default to this. I have to show you how to do everything. We have to trust with adult learners that they know how they prefer to learn. And we can ask them, how do they prefer to learn or how can we support them best? But we also need to trust that they're going to tell us. So you might have heard there are 3 different types of learning. There's auditory, visual, and kinesthetic learning. Auditory means that people need to hear things in order to process it, and that's how they best assimilate information. Kinesthetic means I need to do things. I need to have hands-on ways to actually go do the thing. And then visual is I need to see it. What I've seen for a lot of trainers, and this could be true also for coaches or anyone else who is creating content for groups, is that we often default to auditory. We talk at people and we expect them to learn. And this is true in any environment. This is not just coaches. This is everybody that I've seen. We often default to auditory learning and talking. And it's so interesting when you think of like college and, hey, David, you're at kinesthetic. Yep, no, a lot of us are hands-on doing. When we're in college, many of you might have seen, and I don't know that it's changed over the years, it might have, that there are even lecture halls and that instructors lecture a lot of the times. And sometimes it's really hard to learn that way because if you're not an auditory learner and you're just hearing things, it's hard to assimilate. So this is something to keep in mind when you are doing your workshops or your group programs or anything, or even when you're doing one-on-one coaching, is pay attention to these different cues from people. Do you hear them talking about things that they hear, or do you hear them saying things like, oh, I see, or are they talking about how they're doing things? And you can ask them too. This is the cool thing when it talks about self-directed, it's because adults usually know how they prefer to learn. Like Dave just jumped in here and said, I'm kinesthetic. He knows. We know how we prefer to learn. So you can ask your clients up front. But another thing that you can do, especially in a group learning setting, is to think about where can you incorporate all the different learning styles. So where can you be saying something, but then where can you have a visual aid or have them looking at something? And in an online environment, that could be slides, or that could be having them click somewhere or type something where they have to go see something. And then also with kinesthetic, you can have them do something, whether that's have a conversation with you or it's type something in the chat or anything like that. So there are a lot of different options. As an instructor or someone who is teaching adults or helping them learn something, you're really there to be a support instead of an instructor. So you can give them little bits of information, but then you really want to be there just to support them and allow them to ask for what they need. The second piece that I talked about was experiential and uses the knowledge they already have. So we as adults, we have lots of experiences. And you all as coaches, you've seen this. When you talk to your clients, you hear them talk about their experiences. That's what we draw out of them as we ask really open-ended questions. But adults want to share those experiences. We have all had many life experiences. And it's in talking about those experiences that we're able to make connections. So maybe I know that I had this experience with how I marketed this particular program, and I was really good at it and it worked really well. Well, if an instructor is just lecturing me and just throwing a bunch of tips at me the whole time and not asking for me to share, then I may not assimilate and make that connection as well. And that also, in sharing and asking people to share their experiences, it allows for other people's minds to be triggered. So if somebody is teaching me something, they say, hey, who in here has marketed a program before and how did that work for you? And they allow for the conversation. I jump in and say, yeah, I did XYZ thing and it worked really well. And I had like 20 people there. It was so amazing. And somebody else in the group may be thinking, oh yeah, no, I did that same thing. Or man, I could have done that thing that last time. Maybe I'll try it next time. So it's about making those connections and bringing in that self-knowledge, that personal experience helps for people to make those connections. Experiential also means hands-on. Not everyone is a kinesthetic learner, but hands-on means doing in some way. Doing could be talking about something. So having people engage with each other in a group conversation or some kind of breakout room, or having them draw something, giving them the opportunity to draw something or write something out. Even in a group setting where you tell them write that down, that's a great tip to share with people too, because it refocuses their minds to do something. So a lot of good options with that. The third one is relevant. Adult learning needs to be relevant, and there needs to be what I like to call immediacy of application. What that means is that adult learners, we don't have the space or the time in our minds to throw a bunch of stuff in our brains that we're not going to use right away. You know, I've heard people say before, well, I'll just mention it. Mentioning doesn't do anything, because if it's just a, quick fly by the night comment and you don't have a need for that information, it's just going to fly in and fly right back out. So there needs to be something that's relevant. And often, especially with our workshops, this is where you get to think about, okay, who are my clients? Who are my ideal people? What do they need right now? What is it that they can use right away? And this is also why it's so important to give people tangible action steps to do after the workshop, that they can see immediate results, because those immediate results, that's what's going to keep them coming back to you as a coach too. If they're like, oh my God, I did this one thing and I got all these clients, or I got all these calls, or all these big things happened, I was able to shift my business. That's insanely good for you as a coach or as an entrepreneur. So making it relevant to them. One of the simplest ways that you can do that in workshops or group programs, and this, like, it could be the first session of a group program, or it could be in your workshop, is ask people why they came. Because when you know why they came, you may have your content all mapped out, but you can customize and you can tailor it, and you can remember, Dave, I see that you said you came for this one particular thing. Hey, what I'm talking about right now totally refers to that. And that, again, redirects people's attention. Oh, okay, I'm paying attention now because I know you remembered I said something and you brought it back to why I came. So pay attention to why people came. That's a great way to engage with them, is ask them that up front. But here's where people fall flat. It's not just asking them up front, it's asking them up front and then taking a note of it and paying attention so that you can refer to it later on. That is fantastic instruction. It's fantastic facilitation, and will go so far for you, because people want to know that you're paying attention. Engagement for the sake of engagement is pointless, honestly. Don't throw in a bunch of engagement things if they don't have purpose behind them. So putting in engagement that allows for you to refer back or to engage them later on and bring them into the conversation, way better than just being like, here's a poll just because, okay? The fourth piece is focused on problem solving. Adult learning needs to be focused on solving real life problems. We all come into this, especially people with coaches come into workshops or they come into group programs because they have problems they want to solve, whether it's in their business or their personal life, or something is just off. They come to you for you to help them solve their problems. So this is where, again, it's not just about lecturing them on how to do the thing or giving them 5 steps. It's about, okay, maybe I give them a little bit of information and then I give them the opportunity to do the damn thing. Because adults can't just, I don't want to say can't, because everyone can do everything, but adults don't prefer overall to just hear the information, be like, okay, cool, I just got that, we're good to go. Most of the time, adult learners want to be involved in solving the problem. So this could be creating some kind of scenario and then allowing for them to have a discussion around, okay, how do I actually solve this? Thanks, Dave. You're awesome as well. So really, it's doing is the learning. If you think about it, life is problem solving. We all have problems within our lives that we want to solve. And coming to these different places to learn, we want to learn how to do the problem solving. I will tell you one thing, as a trainer, what I've learned over the years is most of the time, coaches are better, honestly, because they expect it. Most of the time, people hate role play. I will tell you, people hate it. They hate it, hate it, hate it, because it's uncomfortable. But with discomfort comes growth. Okay. So this is one of those things where if I throw in a role play, I'm going to be really gentle with people about it. I'm going to tell them here's the purpose behind it. Hopefully you get someone who volunteers. But role plays are one of those things. Know your audience really well before you put them in. It could be a scenario based. You give them like, here's the scenario. What's the problem here? How would you solve it? And tie it back to whatever topic you're teaching. So many different options to give people the opportunity to problem solve. And the final piece is adults need to be motivated to learn. Now, hopefully, if they're coming to your programs or they're coming to your workshops or working with you, they're motivated to learn. But if they're not, you're going to sense it. And that's where, as coaches, especially, we have to call that out. We have to be able to lovingly bottom line people and say, hey, don't feel like you're in it today, what's going on, and get to the nitty gritty of it, and help them remember why they're there. So if they don't care enough, they're not going to learn. I mean, that's the bottom line. And this is also something for you as a facilitator to remember. This is good to think about in your marketing too. And this is why you'll see, like Krista and I, when we do a lot of our marketing, we put in there, this is what you walk away with, because that's the motivation to learn. That's also the relevance and the immediacy of application. People need to know, what is it, what we call in training, the WIFM, what's in it for me? I blanked for a minute there. What's in it for me? The WIFM, WIIFM. They have to know what's in it for them. And I see a lot of people fall flat with this too, is we're like, come to my workshop, it's going to be great. But we don't talk about, what am I actually going to walk away with? I need to know, what are my results that I am going to get as a result of attending this workshop or this group program? Very, very important to start putting that in. And don't shortchange yourself, because a lot of people will be like, oh, but I don't want to guarantee results. You're not guaranteeing results. Okay. We know that people have to put an effort in, and they have to be willing to learn, and that they are going to get what they put into it. But at the same time, we need to be able to tell them, these are the expected results. This is what you can expect to walk away with if you show up and you're engaged and you participate. This also takes the pressure off you, though. I hear a lot of people say, like, if they're giving a speech or anything, they're like, oh, people aren't paying attention. They're on their phones. They're distracted, whatever. If they are not motivated to be there, and this works for in-person or online, if they are not motivated to be there, it's not your fault, okay? We have to have that innate motivation, and they chose to be there, or they were forced to, maybe, especially if it's like a corporate job and they had to be there. But that's not on you. So this is one of those things to remember, is adults have to be motivated to learn. You can do everything possible to give them that motivation, or to provide them with tips on why they should be there or the results or whatever. But ultimately, if it's not that interesting to them, or if they have some sort of block, then they may not be motivated to learn. Now, as coaches, you may have the opportunity, especially if it's a longer term program and you have that trust and intimacy established with them, to dig into that a little bit, because they signed up with you for some reason. So you may spend some time, what we talked about before, is asking questions like, hey, I'm sensing like this is coming up a lot, and it seems like you said you want to make this change. Again, going back to the goal, you wanted to make this change. And every time we get to this point to take action, you're not following through on your commitments. So what's up with that? How do we figure out what your motivation is? What do you actually want? And that's where you can super dig in deep with them, and hopefully help them get to that place of, well, I'm either not really in it, or there's probably something deeper that's blocking them, like something, some fear or something that they need to work through with you. And that's a great opportunity. And it shows that you've been paying attention. So to recap everything, because that's what I like to do at the end, adult learners need to be, or they're self-directed. So they need to have the opportunity to self-direct their own work and have autonomy in how they learn. Adult learning needs to be experience-based and allow for people to bring in their own life experiences they've had so far. It needs to be relevant, and there need to be immediacy of application, or the opportunity for them to take what they learn and go do it right away, whether that's in the session or afterwards, or both actually is best case scenario. Adults are focused on problem solving. We all have real life problems, so we need to give opportunities to problem solve within our workshops or one-on-one practice programs, whatever that is. And finally, there has to be a motivation to learn in your adult learners, and you can help provide that by showing them what it is they're going to get out of their programs with you or their one-on-one, whatever it is. But ultimately, they got to take that responsibility. I hope this was helpful to all of you. This was super fun to do. And I'd love to hear more. Someone said self-directed. I'd love to know what you meant or what was coming up for you there. I also wanted to invite you all to my workshop on Friday. It is at 9:30 a.m. Mountain Time, 11:30 Eastern. It's all about creating captivating virtual workshops so that you can attract more clients in your one-on-one practice, your programs, fill all those programs up. And we're going to be digging into how do you do all of this stuff I just talked about? What are the actual tangible things that you can incorporate in your programs? And I gave you a few of those tips kind of embedded today, but we're super going to be digging into how do you do this in your programs? And we'll have a lot of practical applications. So I would love to see you there. It's pay what you can. There's some tiered pricing options listed if you want some suggestions. I've had people ask for that, but also, any donation is welcome. I would love to support you all in bringing this into your own coaching business or whatever business it is you have. I'll drop the link in the comments. I hope you have a great day. Bye, everyone.